Or it's okay. Okay, we're going to be up in, I'm going to put it in 15 so I can tell it 30 seconds. Hey, y'all. It's all right. Chimes. I'm good.
There we go.
Okay, it's all right. Three, two. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about our voting rights and really and voter suppression that happened in the 2024 election. There is proof, everybody. The same man who broke the story about the theft of the 2000 election, Greg Palast, will be with us in the second hour to talk about what happened in this election. He has uncovered more than 3 million votes, he said, that should have gone to Kamala Harris. More than 3 million votes. And so we're going to find out about that. I mean, because we haven't talked about voter suppression since really 2000. I don't know how we stopped talking about it when Barack Obama was running, because I was most fearful of that then, but no one said anything. And it's been ongoing. It's been ongoing. But right now, let's talk about the Ahmaud Arbery case. I want you to meet me on and the police corruption in it. That's right. I want you to meet me on Blue Sky at santitajackson.bsky.social. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody like and share, like and share, like and share, like and share the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please become my friend there. And then, of course, I'm at Santita J on X, and I'll be on a few other platforms. But this is it. This is it. And I want to hear what your thoughts are about the prosecutor in this case. The prosecutor in this case who told the murderers to go clean yourselves up and go home. That's an oversimplification, but that is what she did. And we need to talk about it. We need to talk about the heroes in this case. As Ahmaud Arbery's parents grieved, their father stepped forward and said, number one, you're going to tell me what happened to my son. And we are going to remove this prosecutor, and we are going to change the political landscape in this town. They're the heroes here. But we wouldn't even know about this story had not Attorney Barbara Arnwine and Attorney Darrell Jones of the Transformative Justice Coalition, she's the founder, he's the chair, had they not been sitting on this case that no one was paying any attention to. And then, of course, this is one of those cases that captivated the whole nation. So I want to know what your thoughts are, everybody, because as we're looking at the removal of consent decrees that really put a check on police power, we see what happens when police power, which the prosecutorial branch of the judiciary is part of, when they go unchecked, what happens? I want to hear what your thoughts are. Hey, Andre, everybody, like and share, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Like and share, and please get on over to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I want to hear what your thoughts are, because we're going to walk through this case, because the corruption, hey, Bernadette, the corruption, quite frankly, is shocking. I mean, when you walk through it, from these people chasing this young man through the street as he's jogging, they shoot him, and then what happened in the immediate aftermath, how they were going to be guided into maybe just being able to walk away from this someone that they murdered. And they would have had police cover. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. Attorney Darrell Jones, I want to hear from you, because indeed you and Attorney Barbara Arnwine have been heroes in this case, because we would not know about this case were it not for you. Let me just put it this way. This is from a report from WSB-TV in Atlanta. A jury has now been seated in the criminal trial for the former prosecutor charged with interfering, isn't that a nice way of putting it, in the Ahmaud Arbery case, in the police investigation of this case, they write. Former District Attorney Jackie Johnson has been charged with violating her oath of office, a felony, and a misdemeanor count of hindering police as they investigated Arbery's killing. She's denied wrongdoing, saying she immediately handed the case to an outside prosecutor. But it didn't quite happen that way. So I want you, hey, Paul, how you doing, sweetie? Hello, hello, hello. Talk to us. What happened? Because it seems to me that they've sanitized this case, Attorney Daryl Jones. It
Well,
didn't quite happen that way, did it?
it didn't quite happen as has been reported. Look, on February 23rd, 2020, Ahmaud Arbery, 25-year-old African American male out of Brunswick, Georgia, went for a jog. He was an avid athlete. He loved to be in shape. He loved to run, and it's what he did. This was part of his regular trail. This wasn't the first time he had jogged into Santita Shores, which is where this incident occurs. Ahmaud goes for his run. He has on running shorts, jogging shorts, as well as a T-shirt. And he part of his run is into Santita Shores. I estimate that's probably about mile 3 or so of his run. And as he's going into Santita Shores, the McMichaels, Gregory McMichael and Travis McMichael see him. Gregory McMichael initially sees him. He then calls his son, Travis McMichael, to say that this black guy is running through their neighborhood. Get your gun, we're going to get him. And so Gregory McMichael and Travis McMichael then take off in the pickup truck to go to get Ahmaud Arbery, and then they call their neighbor. Their neighbor, William Roddy Bryan, sees what's going on. He sees him running, he sees the guy going by, and so William Roddy Bryan then gets into his vehicle and goes after Ahmaud Arbery as well. Ahmaud ultimately is pinned in by the McMichaels and William Roddy Bryan. Travis McMichael then confronts, after he has him cornered, confronts Ahmaud and comes at him with his gun, going toward Ahmaud. And ultimately, Travis McMichael shoots Ahmaud Arbery in the chest 3 times and ends up killing him. It's after the killing is where all of this now kicks in with regards to Jackie Johnson, because what subsequently happens is that Gregory McMichael, the father, used to work for the prosecutor in Jackie Johnson as an investigator. He was also a former police officer in Glenn County with their police department. So after the shooting, Gregory McMichael, it has been shown from the records, has at least 16 to 17 calls between he and Jackie Johnson. In one of those calls, we know that Jackie Johnson responds by telling the police officers that are at the scene of the shooting with Ahmaud's body in the street and Ahmaud's blood on their hands, tells them to not arrest the 3 of them, but to let them leave. Travis McMichael is taken in for questioning. She's very clear with the police that he's not to be arrested. Gregory McMichael and William Roddy Bryan go home, wash the blood off of them, and continue on, and no one questions them. There's no information that is released. There's a film, as we know, that occurs in this case from William Roddy Bryan, who filmed the encounter. However, Jacqueline Johnson never released the film. She had access to the video. She wouldn't release it. Ahmaud's father, on that date of February 23rd, 2020, is an over-the-road driver. He had been down in Florida making a delivery. When he finds out about his son being shot, he doesn't know what's happened. His brother calls him and says, "Look, you need to come home. It's something about Ahmaud." He comes back, drives back that night, all the way back. And then once he is back, he's trying to find out what happened. What happened to my son? How did my son die? Initially, Jackie Johnson lies to the family, lies to the father, and says that Ahmaud died inside the house, that he was killed in the house.
In what house?
Right. After Ahmaud was running, he stopped to get a drink of water at a home that was under construction, a very new home that was under construction. No one was living in it, etc. But he stopped in there. He looked around there, he wanted to be an electrician, so he's looking at all the stuff that's there and what's going on. Comes out of the house and just continues his run. It's at that point that the chase subsequently occurs.
Mm.
So at this point in time, Jackie Johnson has lied to the family, saying that he was killed because he broke into the house where he had stopped to look in, and that he died in the house. And he didn't die in the house that was under construction. They were then found out that Ahmaud died in the streets, and that he was in the street of Santita Shores. There was when the father finally finds the spot where Ahmaud was killed, there's a pool of blood that's still there, Ahmaud's blood, that is still there. The family goes to the spot, and actually his aunt Diane takes her white shirt and dips it into Ahmaud's blood that's on the pavement to soak it in. And from there, there's a series of lies that comes from the prosecutor's office, from Jackie Johnson's office. She continues to say, I'm going to take care of you guys. I want to prosecute this case. I got it. Don't worry about it. The entire time she has the video of what happened. The entire time.
Well, let me get this straight. So she's having one conversation with Ahmaud Arbery's family. At the same time, she's having another conversation with his killers.
With the killers, that's correct. She's doing all that she can to not have the killers arrested and brought to justice, but telling the family all along that she's taking care of it. Now, mind you, Ahmaud's dad, Marcus Arbery, is just a pillar of a gentleman. Every day, he's going down to the state's attorney's office at the courthouse, asking, what happened to my boy? What happened to my boy? Tell me what happened. Every day. And every day she says, I'm working on it, and then subsequently stops seeing him when he comes down, that she doesn't want to talk to him anymore about it. So what subsequently happens is that during this period, we subsequently find out that Jackie Johnson calls another prosecutor, George Barnhill, which is out of Waycross, a neighboring county. And she calls George Barnhill to ask him to do a review of the case, that she has this conflict because she knows that Gregory McMichael is a conflict for her. So she asked George Barnhill, another prosecutor, to review the evidence in the case, and gives him the information. Barnhill has it for, I think, maybe a day or two, some of this stuff, and he says it's a justified shooting to me. And he writes a little note back to her that this is, it's okay, it's just a justifiable shooting. It was self-defense. There was no murder here. Subsequent to that, Jackie Johnson then alerts the Attorney General's office of her conflict of interest in the case, which is what she should have done initially. After she alerts the Attorney General's office of the conflict of interest in the case, she then suggests that George Barnhill should be the prosecutor that they assign to review the case. Mind you, she already knows what Barnhill's going to say. Barnhill's son worked in Jackie Johnson's office as a prosecutor. So you have all these combinations that are going on here. But she never discloses that Barnhill had previously come up with a determination. She never discloses that she's provided Barnhill with information. She never discloses that Barnhill's son used to work in her office. She doesn't disclose any of this. Subsequent to that, the Georgia Bureau investigation, I think we're in day 42 at this point that Ahmaud has been shot. The video has been going on and no action has occurred. After the family continued to pressure for something to happen, and the video subsequently gets released that shows that the country has seen of Ahmaud Arbery being gunned down in the street, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations, the GBI, gets involved in the case. Within 2 days, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation indicts all three of them, and we begin the process of the trial for them. What's happening now, and it was I guess it must have been 2 years ago, a year or 2 years ago, that we had the convictions of Travis McMichael, Gregory McMichael, and William Roddy Bryant, both in the state court cases for murder and in the federal court cases for their murders as well, their roles as well. Now, Jackie Johnson is standing trial. The family of Ahmaud Arbery, and this, people just have got to understand, because we lift this up, folks. We tell folks all the time, Santita, that this is really a voting rights story as well. When Jackie Johnson was going through all of this with Ahmaud Arbery and trying to help out her former employee, Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, his son, and William Roddy Bryant, Jackie Johnson at that point was in the middle of an election. She was up for re-election. There was no one running against her. She was running unopposed. At this point, it was beyond the filing time, so no one could even register to run against her. She was running completely unopposed. What the Arbery family and the community did was that they gathered a significant number of signatures so that they could put another name on the ballot to run against Jackie Johnson. And that's what they were succeeded in doing. And once they got the name on the ballot, they then worked behind that candidate, worked for that candidate. And then for the first time in Glenn County's history, a sitting prosecutor an incumbent prosecutor was defeated in the poll, right, in the election, so that she was then voted out of office. At this point,
hold that thought. Because one thing I do want to know is, when did it become clear to Ahmaud Arbery's family that she had been lying to them?
It initially became clear when she had represented to them that Ahmaud was killed inside the vacant house that was under construction. And then when they went and they saw the blood in the street, and the neighbors in that neighborhood said that was where he was killed. That's when they knew that they were being lied to, because Ahmaud's blood was in the street. It didn't happen in the house. It happened in the street. They're not a well-lettered family by any stretch of the imagination. They believe that a prosecutor is going to uphold the law and do what is right to be done, that they're not going to be lied to. So they then began that part with regards to going down, asking for more information. When it became clear that she wasn't providing the information, that they became really skeptical of what she was trying to do. And then, what put the what do you call it, the horse over the hill, or whatever the phrase is, was when the straw that broke the camel's back was when they saw the video that was released on social media, not by Jackie Johnson, on social media. Right? That's how I saw the video, because it was released on social media, not by her. That's when they realized it was all a lie. All that she had said was a lie.
The video of them chasing
him for, I think it's almost nearly 5 minutes of a chase that goes on. And so, everything that she had represented to this family was a lie. Everything that she represented to the family was a lie. And that's the reason that she stands at trial today.
How did they? Okay, because this is like you said, this is also about voting rights and the power of the people, right? So while it's becoming clear to them that they lied, and mind you, the vestiges of segregation are still with us, and it's not just in the South, but it is another kind of community. It's a different kind of culture there, right? So these people decided to go up against the white city and county elders, which, I mean, I don't think we can ever overstate their courage. And I mean, because these people took their lives into their hands. It's because it's the culture, because it's the same trial when they were I guess when they were, I guess, trying them. Didn't the lawyer say that he didn't want Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, would just please don't bring all these people in here? And Reverend had not even been down there yet. I
Mhm.
mean, I think
Mhm.
Reverend Barber had been down there, Al Sharpton had been down there. And they put Reverend's name in it. He was like, I haven't even been I haven't even been there.
Yeah.
But his family did ask, and he did show up what a couple of days late after, because that was on a Friday. And he went down there that Monday because you all and the family asked him to go. And so I mean it was a very charged atmosphere,
Uh,
right?
ab- yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm trying to figure out how his family decided and how they had the savvy to, did they find a candidate? I mean, how did they end up pushing this woman out of office?
Yeah, Santita, it turns out that Jackie Johnson, had done a lot of dirt in Glenn County. And this was not the only case. When we were down there for the first day of her jury selection, there were all kinds of folks that were coming out to talk about how their children had been either killed by the police or things that had happened to them that were improperly investigated, and that she was trying to hide the information and not have the prosecution of the police occur. So this wasn't a one-off for her. This wasn't a one-time thing or anything like that. This was almost like a standard operating procedure for her to try to have this type of relationship that she was in control. One of the things and this is just by way of background, one of the things that a lot of people should recognize and should take to note is that the sitting prosecutor and the elected sitting prosecutor in a jurisdiction is actually the highest law enforcement person in that area. They are it. It's not the police officer. It's not the police chief. It's the sitting prosecutor that makes the decision as to whether or not any charges are being brought against anyone, and whether or not cases are being prosecuted against anyone.
I didn't know that. I mean, so prosecutors are, so when we see a Marilyn Mosby, when we see a Kim Fox, when we see these people who've been, well, they are progressive
Mhm.
prosecutors, as Kamala Harris was. I mean, and she really had to. I mean, and they have to work in a system that is not progressive at all.
Mhm.
Um, they she has the ultimate power. So again, I ask you, how did they? Who did they choose? How did they decide to choose? And what was the process? Because I think that because after Laquan McDonald was killed here in Chicago, we said the prosecutors got to go
Mhm.
in Chicago. That was it. I
Mhm.
mean, I mean, and that's what happened with Marilyn Mosby. It was
Right.
like, it's just there. It's you never know what straw is going to break the camel's back. But what happened? I just want people to see what these people did in this little town
Mhm.
and how they completely changed the political landscape.
Right. And see, and part of what happens here, and you're absolutely right that the Arbery family themselves are not lettered as such that they're going to go out and find the attorney to run against Jackie Johnson. But what they did have behind them was their community and folks that did know what to do. They did have the church that was behind them. It's a
Yeah.
small community, very very small town, right? And just for a complete appreciation for why we lift them up as heroes. When we talk about a small rural area, when we're talking about this Brunswick area, we're talking about an area that's so small and poor that you would think you were in some of the third world countries with the way that the absence of vehicles and all that. You'll see a
Mhm.
lot of bicycles that are the source of transportation that's there. Their primary employment came from three or four employers that were white owned. And because of those three or four white owned businesses, they controlled the employees, they controlled the temperament and everything else that went on in that community. So for the Arbery family to stand up uh,
Oh yeah.
against the establishment with regards to what happened. What they were putting at risk was their sense of employment, their sense of income. because they realized that they would be released, from work. So they wouldn't be able to work. There were threats that were made to employment that said that they would have to go down to Florida to find employment. You'll find no employment within this area of Georgia where you're residing. So it was a very real risk that they were taking. The
But you know
community,
what? But if I may interrupt, I'm sorry. It was also a threat to their lives because
absolutely.
implicit in those threats, and you know what? And quite frankly, typically it's not the middle class, the upper class black person who's going to make this difference because they have too much to lose, and maybe I can talk to someone, and they can talk to me. That's how I got in the first place.
Hmm.
It's people like that who say, because the father kept going, what happened to my son?
Hmm.
And what did they say to Duke Ellington? Someone asked him once, how is it that he was able to write so many different kinds of music? I mean, because he did everything: orchestral, straight ahead jazz, gospel, whatever. He said, well, maybe I didn't go to school so I could learn that I couldn't.
Hmm.
Maybe, maybe that's it, because they did turn things around. Who did they find? I want to know how they did this before we go into the jury that has now been impaneled, and where you think this is going to go, because you just came back from this. So I mean, who ran against her? Who did they get? Daryl? Okay, you're back. It's okay.
Yeah, can you
Who
hear
did they
me?
get? Yeah, now I can. Who did
Okay,
they get?
okay.
I mean, who did they get to run?
There was an attorney, and I apologize, I cannot remember the
Okay.
attorney's name that they found, because that wasn't part of the concentration for us. But once the attorney was identified, the family did get behind that attorney. They were out there, doing the door to door, all the canvassing and everything else that's involved. The community also got behind that attorney and pushed forward for that attorney's election. And it was an overwhelming election, if I recall correctly, with regards to the numbers. It wasn't even close with regards to the election. So, when we talk about, if you were to hear Marcus Aubrey speak today, I can tell you that when we initially encountered Marcus Aubrey, um, wow, when we initially encountered Marcus Aubrey, and actually before we encountered Marcus Aubrey, we encountered his sister, the matriarch, the
Hmm.
senior of the family, Diane Aubrey Jackson.
The one who got his blood, her nephew.
Yes, yes. Uh,
Who?
we took her to dinner, and it was just a by chance meeting that we met, and then we subsequently asked them to come and join us for dinner, and she did, along with everyone except for the father, Marcus. It was at that dinner meeting that Diane turned to me, and mind you, Cynthia, this is the first time I have met any of them, the very first time. Diane turned to me, and they called me Mr. Darrell, and said, Mr. Darrell, will you please call Marcus? He won't talk to anyone. He's withdrawn, he's gone within himself, and he just won't talk. And we're so afraid because he won't talk, and he's just despondent. My word, not theirs.
Hmm.
Uh, Sentient, at that moment, I had never spoken to Marcus Aubrey in my life. They give me the telephone number to call him and let him. They told him that I'm going to be calling him the next day. That was the initial call that I had with Marcus, and we didn't go into the substance of the occurrence, but just to try to get him to open up, just to try to get him to talk. And it was from that phone call forward that we've now have built a brotherhood and a friendship. I'll tell you that if you were to ask Marcus Aubrey today about Jackie Johnson and his persistence and what was going on, the one thing that Marcus would say is that it's so important for people to vote, that they were not a voting family. That's not what they did. His one sister, Ruby, had never voted. She was 57 years old, had never voted a day in her life. Never voted, because she didn't think it really mattered, as did other members of their family.
Hmm.
Following the death of, they call him Quez, which is his middle name, following the death of Ahmad, Ruby had decided, and the family had decided that they understood the importance of prosecutors. They understood the importance of elections. They understood that they would not miss another election because they understood that if they don't vote, that they're putting their lives in the hands of people that may or may not care for them. And they had the opportunity to have that impact. They vote now for Ahmad. Every election cycle, they vote for their son. They go to the polling polls because of him and because of what happened to him. So Santita, I lift that to say that, right now, the family is going to be in the courtroom every day. They've been in the courtroom every day. They were in there for opening, for the final jury selection today, opening statements today. Barbara has flown down there. I'll be down there shortly. We're going to be with that family. That family was not going to prosecute this case. They were not even going to show up. They figured there was no need. There was no reason that the Old Boy Network was going to do what the Old Boy Network does. That didn't make sense for them to be there because they couldn't impact it. But my goodness, not only did they impact the case, Santita, but they've impacted a nation.
Absolutely. And they removed this prosecutor who was a big power in the town, in the area. So help me to understand. Just where are we now? Where are we now? You have a jury. I understand that it's mostly women. Is it white women? Is it black women? Who's? What can we expect from this? Because this is a woman who they're being asked to judge. I need help with this one.
Yeah. So we have the jury now that has been selected is primarily white men. It's primarily white men, and there's some women that are on the jury as well. There's two African Americans that are going to be sitting on this jury. But the most important,
it's not primarily women; it's primarily men.
Correct.
Because I read that was primarily women.
Yeah, and so what they're going to be doing. It's interesting, right? Because for both the state trial and the federal trial for the three killers, they were all also predominantly white jurors. So there has not been. I think there was one black juror that was on the federal case that was the four-person, and there was a black that was also on the state jury, possibly two, but I can recall one. But by no stretch of the imagination has there been a majority or a lot of African Americans that are on the juries. That's not because there are not a lot of African Americans that were in the jury pool. There have been. But most times they were stricken or removed from the jury selection process for various reasons, and going through the conversation of who could be an impartial juror.
So, what's now? Is this a state trial? Is this a federal trial? What can happen to her? Because I see there's a misdemeanor, there's a felony. To me, what she has done to me rises, and I'm not a lawyer, but everything to me is felonious. You don't tell someone to go destroy evidence, wash your hands, bathe yourself, and I'll take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that. It seems to me that she was undercharged. I don't know. You help me.
Yeah, I can't say that she was undercharged. It's very rare that we have prosecutors that are being charged with crimes in situations like this. So
even when they do this?
I'm sorry?
Even when they do this?
It's rare that we hear about all of this.
Okay, I'm sorry. That part. Okay.
Right.
It's rare that we hear about all of this.
Right. Exactly. It's rare that we hear about this, and that we have, the some of the evidence that's in place to show what she has done. So, so this is a rare piece. You got to remember, ordinarily, this is and answer part of your question. This is a state court case. This is a state court case. This is Georgia State Court where this case is being heard. The judge that's hearing the case is not a judge that's out of Glenn County. You got to remember that Jackie Johnson was the prosecutor for Glenn County, so she would be familiar with all the judges that are there. So they have a judge that's coming from, I believe the pronunciation is Kobe County, that has come in, and so he's the judge that's hearing this because he doesn't know the players in this. So he's the one that is hearing the case as the judge. The prosecutor on this case is the Attorney General's office for the state of Georgia. The Attorney General's office is the prosecuting entity. So they're the ones that are pushing forward on this case. From what I've seen, and I've had a chance to speak to the Attorney General, the Assistant Attorney General that's prosecuting the case as well. And from what I see and what I believe is that they have a very strong case with regards to convicting Jackie Johnson. Interestingly, as they were going through the process of selecting jurors, um, there were a lot of potential jurors that were very forthcoming with regards to their thoughts of guilt, innocence, and the occurrence in this case. There are many that said that they thought Jackie Johnson was guilty based on what they've read and what they've heard on social media and elsewhere. They thought, they in her mind, she had done this, and that she's guilty of it, and they couldn't shake it from her mind. There are also other jurors that said that they thought it was a witch hunt. We've heard that phrase before, right? That it was a witch hunt, and that they were after this elected official, and all these folks came to make her a sacrificial lamb, and that she was only doing what she was told to do based on the information that she had. So going through that jury selection process, it gives us sort of a flavor for what's happening in the community throughout Glenn County, which is where Brunswick sits in this situation. It should be, we should know that Brunswick itself is a high African American population, but Glenn County is not. So Brunswick, which is where the incident occurs, where the courthouse sits, is a high African American population, but the larger county is predominantly white. So that's where the jurors are coming from, and from both. So it's really interesting to watch it all, because you get a feel for what's happening in that community. This is the biggest thing to happen in their community. This is the biggest thing to happen in their county. This is what their county is being known for nationally and internationally. Is
That's
this
what I know them for.
Right. And so, and there, many that live in the community are offended that, these guys have put this bad mark on their good county.
Really?
Absolutely.
So, so how does that shape? Well, so how is Ahmad's family viewed then? Have they been embraced by the broader community?
They have been embraced by the broader community. There's a cross section of ministers and religious heads that really have worked very closely now with the family to bring the family closer to the community, and the religious community closer to the family. And when we first started going down there, we were doing our marches in the community to bring awareness to what was happening. When we first marched, I think there were maybe 8 of us, if we were lucky, that were going through the neighborhoods, and everyone was just sort of looking. By the time it came to the conviction in the state court case, there was so many people that were involved in the community that had come out to be a part, to be on the lawn of the courthouse to show their support for the family, that it was really heartwarming for the family. It was heartwarming for everyone to see the outpouring of love and concern that folks had for the family, for what had happened, and for the community now to come together and to show their love to this family. And that has continued up until this day, Santita. So it's really huge.
Jackie Johnson is still declaring her innocence. Upon what basis? And what do you think is going to happen with this trial? And upon what basis do you think she might lose this trial? And what would be the penalty? I know I've asked you a lot, but it's
no, it's fine. Because as a litigating attorney, there's so many things that run through your mind when you're viewing this case. First, let me start by saying Jackie Johnson is represented by a very competent attorney, Brian Steele. Brian Steele is the attorney that represented Young Thug down in Atlanta, Georgia. Part of the reason that this trial has been so delayed is because Brian was involved in the Young Thug prosecution, where Fonnie Willis was prosecuting him for a whole network of gang-related supposedly activity, and that prosecution took over 2 years. Right, that was all Brian Steele. That was the reason that this case was so delayed for Jackie Johnson, is because Steele was involved in that case in Atlanta, Georgia, some 5-6 hours away. So she has very good and competent counsel that's working with her, a whole team of counsel that's working with her. What I see sort of happening, though, is this. I think that you're going to see a lot of smoke and mirrors coming from the defense. He's already indicated some of it pre-trial, where his indication was that Jackie Johnson was involved in prosecuting the chief of police in Glenn County for corruption charges. And while she was involved in prosecuting the chief of police, her attention was completely on indicting this chief of police. And she didn't know what was happening with regards to Ahmaud Arbery and all of that information. So, she wasn't focused on Ahmaud Arbery, but was on the chief of police. You're going to see a lot of stuff like that that's going to be trying to be thrown out by the defense to try to get her out of this. Is it going to be successful? I don't think so. I think that, when you're the head prosecutor, you walk and chew gum at the same time. Always. There are always multiple cases that are going on that you're responsible for. And ultimately, Santita, Jackie Johnson knows that she took 16 phone calls from someone that worked for her that's an accused killer, that she gave information to the Attorney General's office recommending an outside prosecutor to come in to prosecute the case, knowing what that prosecutor's position already was before she gave it to them. I don't see how she walks away from this. What does the judge ultimately do? That's a good question. The judge there certainly comes across as a no-nonsense judge. He's pushed this trial along very, very rapidly. And I would not be surprised if he does give her some time if she's convicted in this case. And whether it's 1 year, 5 years, that part I don't know. But I do know this, that the Arbery family has been fighting for justice. They've now got it to the point where it's teed up for justice. And if they get the guilty finding, you can rest assured they're going to have the victim impact statements. The statement I always like to say, they got the first base when they were able to convict Travis McMichael. They made it the second base. I'm a baseball guy. Made it the second base when they got the conviction of Gregory McMichael, his dad. Made it to third base when they got the conviction of William Roddy Bryant, the neighbor. Now they're bringing it home to the prosecutor, Jackie Johnson. And once they get that conviction, they can rest assured that they've done all that they can to avenge the killing of Marcus's son, Ahmaud Arbery.
We're talking with Attorney Darrell Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. He and Attorney Barbara Arnwine, the founder of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Indeed, she's probably, I would say, she's really the godmother of voting rights in America at this time. Former executive director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, which was created by President Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, to ensure our civil rights. And she and you have done so much work. It is just when we see this case, we see you helping us to understand just how powerful the prosecutor is. And I guess it helps us to understand why Kim Fox and Marilyn Mosby and Fonnie Willis and Letitia James, even though Letitia James, she prosecutes in her own way, right?
Right.
Why you go after them? I know we pushed a prosecutor out behind Laquan McDonald's because we said, wait a minute, she's in on the cover-up. She's got to go. So what is our takeaway from this? Because can you see Jackie Johnson going to prison?
I can. Let me tell you, one of the most offensive things right now in my mind that's going on with Jackie Johnson. And I should say that Jackie Johnson did give another statement prior to the beginning of the trials and stuff. Said that this whole prosecution was political and that people are trying to exploit the case to divide the community. That's that's
It was
the
clear. Yeah.
yeah, right. That's what she's saying. Um, One of the things that I think we need to take note of about all of this and where this leads with regards to your question is the power of the vote, and the power of the people, and what it really means. What Marilyn Mosby, because I'm a Baltimore guy, right? What
Mhm.
Marilyn Mosby represented coming in, right? What Mosby represented a progressive prosecutor who was coming in following the Freddie Gray killing by the police. She was after the police officers in Baltimore City to hold them accountable for what they did. It wasn't popular with the police department for her to go after the police officers. And remember what we said a little earlier, Santita, that the ultimate head of the law enforcement for any jurisdiction is the prosecutor, not the police officers. The
For any
prosecutor
jurisdiction.
for any jurisdiction, the prosecutor is the ultimate head because they decide whether or not a case is going to be prosecuted or not. Not the police officers. They
Are
don't
they
make that decision.
are they working for the people or the police? How who are they?
Uh, the prosecutors are working for the community. That's why we elect them. We want
Okay.
to elect a prosecutor that's working for the best interest of the community to be certain. They're the watchdog, right? They're the ones who watch over the police department. They're the ones who watch over the process. That's why they can prosecute the police officers. That's why they're charged with those certain responsibilities. They have the law degrees and all the other stuff that's there. Nothing goes to court but through them. The officers' actions don't make it to court on their own. They've got to go through the prosecutor. That's the only way to get there. That's why the prosecutor is the head of it. The police officers, on the other hand, they obviously serve under and at the pleasure of the chief of police, and who is appointed by a mayor or a county executive or what have you, the city head or county head that appoints that chief of police. But the ultimate decision on prosecuting cases comes from the local prosecutor or federal prosecutor that's in charge of various areas.
We're talking with Attorney Darrell Jones as in these closing minutes. I'd like you to help us to see what what our takeaway is. I mean, I think that I think of the Laquan McDonald case in
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, when we felt that the prosecutor was not working for us. We got her out.
Mm-hmm.
And but then when Kim Fox got in, I mean, the police came down on her with such ferocity, and she held on. I mean, and Marilyn Mosby held on, but you see what happened to her. She got prosecuted over her own money. By the way, she was not. She didn't. Her hands were not caught in the public till. This was her money, and everybody was trying to figure out their money during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Because you couldn't work. I mean, it was just everybody you remember it was awful, settling time. But ultimately, hasn't she been disbarred?
Marilyn Mosby has been suspended
Has
and
been suspended,
right,
but that's not disbarment.
but I don't believe she's been disbarred. I know that she has been suspended from the practice of law. On the other side of the equation, Jackie Johnson has not been suspended or disbarred. She has her full license right now. She can go out and represent whoever she wants to represent as we speak. She has not been disciplined by way of suspension or disbarment by the state of Georgia. She still has her license. She's still listed as a member of the Georgia bar.
This is unbelievable. I mean, with all that you know about this case, with all that you know about this case, I mean, given her level of corruption, she still has her license. Help me understand that. It's a system that's subjective.
Well, the system is subjective. Yeah, it clearly is subjective. With Marilyn Mosby, and just by counter by comparison, with Marilyn Mosby, you have someone there that used their own money, took it out perhaps early or whatever, because of the pandemic. and she ends up suspended. Her license ends up suspended because of that, and she ends up prosecuted because of that, which is, which was all political, which was all purely political. If she leaves the police alone, Marilyn Mosby's still sitting as a state senator in Baltimore City today.
Yeah, because
But
no, it's all political. But the fact is, it's it is slanted against people who work for the people. If you
yeah,
side with the police, I mean, this is me. I've got about 3 minutes left here. I mean, it's because it's so clear to me that if you side with the police, um, you're protected. But if you don't, if you side with the people, they find a way to take you out. I mean, it's the
and
same old story, but I think it's important to say, right?
yeah, no, you're right on point. And I can't tell you the number of jurors in the Jackie Johnson prosecution that said that it seemed like the good old boy network was in play in trying to protect her and to protect the police officer, in this case, her employee, and not having her prosecuted. So all of that is in play. And the takeaway I think from all of this is that we've got to be certain that we put in place folks that are in elected positions that have our best interests at heart. If you're going to invest your vote in someone, be certain that that person is not going to turn around and bite you and be the person that hurts your loved one and refuses to prosecute that case and lies to you. I think the takeaway is, Santita, that we have to continue to hold people that we put into responsible positions accountable for the positions and the responsibilities that they undertake, and be certain that we lift it up when they're not doing it, and that we make it public so people know.
And to know that that's when your voting matters. I mean, this was a family. Ahmaud Arbery's family did not vote,
Right.
and then they said, "No, no, no, no. We matter, and we're going. Not only are we going to vote, but we're going to vote you out. We know what the rub is here." And so, I mean, my hat goes off to them. That's why I wanted you to break this down for people, because the Ahmaud Arbery case is not closed.
Yeah. No.
It's not closed, everybody.
Mm.
And I mean, aren't so just very quickly, are the men who killed him, are they still in jail, in
They're
prison?
still in prison. Yeah, they're still in prison.
Is one of them trying to get out though?
All three of them have filed appeals, and this is really important. I just want to be certain to lay it out. All three of them have filed appeals. You got to remember, I call it belts and suspenders, right? We got the convictions in the state court case, and then we got the convictions in the federal case. They have appealed their federal case. They've written letters to who? President Trump, asking if their federal convictions can be pardoned. Would he pardon them for their federal crimes? Fortunately, even should that happen, we still have the state convictions that are in place. They have appealed those state crimes as well to the Georgia Court of Appeals, and we're waiting to hear back from the Court of Appeals with regards to those appeals as well.
Everybody stay tuned. I think this is important for us to stay on top of this case, to know what is going on. And as we come into the 2026 election season, get registered, vote, everybody, because guess what? These are the people who directly impact your life. The prosecutors, the judges. You need to really know about the Legal Aid Society. Do you have one in your area? How are they being funded? Do they get enough monies? Because generally, these lawyers who work for the people, they don't get paid much. And we need all of the help that we can get. We need all of the help that we can get. We need justice. And I want to thank you, Attorney Darrell Jones, you and Attorney Barbara Arnwine, for the work that you do. No one even knew about this case. This happened in some little town, what, in Georgia. Didn't even know about it. And when we saw the case, and when, oh heavens, when we saw Ahmaud Arbery's body,
Mm. Mm.
something that you cannot unsee. You said this young man has to get justice. And so I thank God for you. I thank God for Barbara Arnwine. I thank God for his parents. I thank God for his aunt. I thank God for his whole family. Because had this family Had this family not stood up, this would have been covered up. But at risk to their own lives, because they went up against the police, they went up against the powers in the town, and they said, "You will do right by my boy."
Mm-hmm.
And may God bless them, and may God bless you in the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank
Well,
you
you
so
know
much.
what? We're continuing on with your work. We're going to hear from Greg Palast about voter suppression. He said more than 3 million votes, more than 3 million votes should have gone to Kamala Harris. Can you believe that? Everyone knows that voter suppression is real and that it's ongoing. For some reason, I would say since the Obama presidency, I think we thought everything was okay because he won consecutive presidencies. No,
Mm-hmm.
voter suppression is real. It is ongoing and it's getting more and more sophisticated. You got to hear what Greg Palast found out. Back with more on the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio. Back in a minute.